1, 2, 3, 4.
Wanna hear you go.
Hello, and welcome back to the AI Cafe Conversations, AI for Executives. This is your host, Sahar Andrade, and I am your AI Whisperer. Okay, let's start with a question that should be keeping every CEO and executive awake at night, but isn't. Where will your next VP come from? Do you ever ask yourself that? Not your next hire or your next internal promotion. The person who knows your culture, who understands how your organization works, who has been trained in your methodology, who's ready to step into strategic leadership. Where does that person come from? Have you ever heard of a succession planning? Not those plans that you put in a file and put on a shelf to collect dust, not that. So where does that person come from? Because here is what I'm seeing. Companies are eliminating entry-level roles at scale. AI does the work faster, cheaper, more accurately. Junior analyst positions, they're gone, poof. Entry-level research roles, poof, they are automated. First-year associate tasks, poof, handled by AI. And the CFO is celebrating the ROI. The board is applauding the efficiency. Everyone's looking at the immediate savings, but no one is asking, what did we just lose that we won't realize we need until it's too late? I call it the pipeline paradox, and it's creating a leadership succession crisis that most executives won't see coming until 2028, when they realize their VP pipeline is empty. Today, I'm going to walk you through what's happening, why it matters, and what you need to do about it right now before your competitor figures this out and poaches the entry-level talent you decided you didn't need. So let's talk about the numbers that executives are not connecting. So let me give you some data, and I want you to think about what these numbers mean for your organization specifically. Youth unemployment ages 16 to 24 hit 10.8% in July of 2025. That's 2.5 times higher than overall unemployment of 4.3%. Now, most executives hear that and think, that's a workforce problem. That's a societal problem. That's not my concern. Wrong. That's your talent pipeline evaporating in real time. Because here is what that number actually represents. Young people can find entry-level professional jobs, not because they're not qualified, not because they're not trying, but because those jobs don't exist at the scale they used to. 41% of recent college graduates are underemployed. That means they have a degree, but they are working in jobs that don't require one. They are baristas, gig workers, retail employees. Not because those jobs are not valuable, but because the professional entry-level roles that would have used their education, the roles that would have put them on a path to your VP suite, those roles are disappearing. And here is the stat that stopped me cold. In the UK last year, 1.2 million college graduates competed for just 17,000 entry-level jobs. 1.2 million people for 17,000 jobs. And you might think it's the UK. No, it's an international crisis that we're going through. But here is what you're missing. Those 1.2 million people, many of them are giving up on traditional career path entirely. They're becoming entrepreneurs, they're going into trades, they are leaving the professional workforce before they even enter it. And the ones who do make it through that competitive filter, they are getting multiple offers. And they are choosing companies that are investing in their development, not just extracting value from them. So yes, you can be selective. But the talent you are selecting from is shrinking. And the best candidates are selecting you right back. Here is the other number that matters. 70% of skills used in most jobs will change by 2030. That's LinkedIn's global workforce data. Now think about what that means for leadership development. If 70% of skills are changing in 5 years, how do people learn those new skills? Traditionally, they learned on the job, in entry-level roles, making mistakes, getting feedback, building expertise through repetition, through coaching, through mentoring. But if entry-level roles don't exist, where does that learning happen? How do people develop the foundation they need to eventually lead? And here is the kicker. The employment to population ratio for young people dropped from 54.5% to 53.1% in just 1 year. That's more than 1 million fewer young people employed. 1 million fewer people learning how organizations work, how to navigate professional environments, how to build the skills that eventually make them promotable. Your future VPs are in that missing million, and you just decided you didn't need them. So let me explain why this is a paradox and not just a problem. Here is what's happening in organization right now. AI is automation or automating entry-level tasks, data aggregation, basic research, first draft writing, preliminary analysis. And from a pure ROI perspective, it makes total sense. Why pay a junior analyst $60,000 a year to do work that AI can do in minutes? So companies eliminate the position, or they don't backfill when someone leaves, or they restructure and those roles just disappear. And the immediate result is positive. Labor costs go down, efficiency goes up. The work still gets done. But here is what's actually happening or happened. You didn't eliminate a cost center. You eliminated a training ground. Let me give you a concrete example. A Fortune 500 company I talked to last quarter used to hire 10 entry-level analysts every year. These analysts did a lot of grunt work: market research, data compilation, building slide decks, first pass analysis. Was it exciting work? No, but it was foundational. Because while they are doing that boring, repetitive work, they are learning something much more valuable. They were learning how the company makes decisions, what data matters and what doesn't, how to communicate findings to senior leadership, how to work under deadline, how to collaborate across departments. They were learning the invisible curriculum of professional expertise. And after 2 or 3 years of doing that work, the best ones became senior analysts, then managers, then directors, then VPs. That was the pipeline: entry level to analyst, to senior analyst, to manager, to director, to VP. But here is what that company did last year. They eliminated 8 out of those 10 entry-level positions. AI handles most of the research and analysis now. They kept 2 positions for AI oversight roles. And the CFO celebrated. They saved $480,000 in annual salary costs. But here is what no one calculated. In 2023, when their current VPs retire or move on, where does the next generation of leadership come from? They can't promote from within anymore because there is no within. There is no bench. The pipeline is empty. So they will have to hire externally, bring in VPs from outside. People who don't know the culture, don't understand the methodology, will take 18 months to get up to speed. And what does that cost? The learning curve costs, the cultural friction cost, the strategic misalignment costs, the retention issues when your existing senior staff see outsiders getting promoted above them. But that doesn't show up on this year's P&L, does it? That shows up in 2030 when it's too late to fix. That's the paradox. Today's efficiency creates tomorrow's leadership drought. And here is the neuroscience piece that makes this even worse. Expertise doesn't develop in vacuum. Your brain builds competence through repetition and pattern recognition. You process hundreds of data sets. You write dozens of mediocre reports. You make mistakes and get feedback and iterate. That's how neural pathways strengthen. That's how you go from novice to expert. But if AI does all that work from day one, where do humans build that foundation? You can't skip straight to strategic thinking. The brain doesn't work that way. You need the boring, repetitive work first. That's what creates the pattern recognition that eventually enables higher order thinking. So when you eliminate entry-level roles, you are not just eliminating tasks, you are eliminating the cognitive development pathway that creates future leaders. Now, here is where it gets really interesting, because AI is not affecting all roles equally. For senior positions, your VP, your C-suite, your experienced directors, AI is creating what I call description expansion. Their jobs are getting bigger, more strategic, more impactful, because AI handles the grunt work. A VP can now do the work that used to require a VP plus 2 analysts. They review AI-generated analysis, they refine AI-drafted reports, they focus on high-level strategy while AI handles execution. And from that VP's perspective, AI is incredible. It's making them more productive, more valuable, and more powerful. But here is what they're not seeing. For entry-level roles, AI isn't creating description expansion. It's creating description elimination. The tasks that made up those roles, the data collection, the research, the first drafts, those are not being delegated to junior staff anymore. They're being automated. So you have this split. Senior leaders whose roles are expanding and junior roles that are simply disappearing. And the dangerous part is that senior leaders look at their own experience and think, hey, AI is great. It's making us more effective. And they don't realize that the path they took to get where they are, starting in entry-level roles, doing boring work, learning the fundamentals, that path no longer exists for the next generation. I had a CEO tell me last month, we're hiring for senior roles. We just need people who already have 5 to 7 years of experience. And I asked him, where do you think they got that experience? And he said, other companies, I guess. And I said, what if every company is making the same calculation you are? What if everyone is eliminating entry-level roles and trying to hire experienced talent from competitors? And he went quiet. Because he realized if everyone is trying to hire experienced people and no one is training entry-level people, eventually the pool of experienced people runs dry. It's a tragedy for the commons for talent development. Every individual company makes a rational decision. Let someone else train them. We will hire them when they are experienced, but collectively, that destroys the entire talent pipeline. And here is the timing that matters. It takes 5 to 7 years to develop someone from entry level to senior manager. Another 3 to 5 years from senior manager to VP. So if you stopped hiring entry level people in 2024, you won't see the impact until 2032. When you realize you have no internal candidate for VP roles. And by then, your competitors who kept investing in entry-level development will have a 10-year head start on you. So here is what needs to happen in every boardroom. Someone needs to stand up and ask this question. If we eliminate entry-level roles for AI efficiency, where does our 2030 leadership team come from? Not where does our next quarter's revenue come from, not what our AI ROI, how does it look, but who are we training to lead this company in 5 years? Because here is what I'm seeing. Boards are asking about AI strategy. They are asking about cost savings. They're asking about competitive positioning, but they are not asking about talent pipeline. And the reason they're not asking is because it's not on the agenda. CFOs are presenting cost savings. CTOs are presenting efficiency gains. No one's presenting the 5-year succession risk. So let me give you the framework you need to bring to your board. It's called the pipeline audit, and it has 3 questions. Question number 1, how many entry-level roles did we have in 2020 and how many do we have now? Not how many employees do we have. How many genuine entry-level roles that train people from scratch? If that number has dropped significantly, your pipeline is already damaged. Question number 2. Of our current VP level leaders, what percentage started in entry-level roles at this company versus were hired externally? If most of your best leaders came up through the ranks and you no longer have those ranks, where will your next generation of best leaders come from? Questions number 3. What is your plan of developing strategic thinkers when AI handles all the tactical work that used to teach strategic thinking? Because here is the reality. Strategic thinking isn't something you learn in a workshop. You learn it by doing tactical work and seeing how it connects to strategy. You learn it by building 100 slide decks and eventually understanding what makes a deck compelling. You learn it by analyzing 50 data sets and developing intuition for what patterns matter. If AI does all of that, how do people develop that intuition? And this is where your most boards go. Well, we'll train them. We will create development programs. But here is the neuroscience reality. You can't teach pattern recognition. Pattern recognition develops through exposure and repetition. You can teach frameworks, you can teach methodologies, but you can't teach the intuitive sense of this data looks wrong or this approach won't work. That comes from having it done 1,000 times. So if AI eliminates the repetition, you eliminate the expertise development. All right, so what's the solution? Because I'm not saying don't use AI, I'm saying be strategic about AI. And I'm not a doom and gloom person either. Actually, I'm a big advocate of AI. The answer isn't to eliminate entry-level roles, is to redesign them. Instead of asking, can AI do this job, ask, how can AI augment this learning experience? Here's what that looks like in practice. Create AI augmented entry-level roles. Young people learn to work alongside AI from day one. They don't do the work AI can do. They oversee AI. They refine AI outputs. They learn strategic thinking by evaluating AI-generated analysis. A tech company I'm working with did this in a brilliant way. Instead of eliminating junior analyst roles, they renamed them AI analysis coordinators. The role isn't to build models, it's to prompt AI effectively, evaluate outputs critically, and synthesize insights strategically. And here is what they discovered. These junior people learn faster than previous generations because they're not bogged down in mechanics. They jump straight to strategic thinking. But, and this is critical, they still need the role. They still need the structure. They still need the mentorship and the feedback and the organizational socialization. You can't just eliminate the role and expect people to figure it out on their own. Second strategy. Create rotation programs where entry-level people spend time in multiple departments. If tasks are automated, make the role about learning the business, not just doing tasks. Third strategy. Invest in dual-track development. Some people need tactical skills. Some people are being groomed for leadership. Be explicit about which track someone is on and develop them accordingly. But the key insight is this. Talent development is now a competitive advantage, not a cost center. The companies that figure out how to develop leaders in an AI augmented world will dominate the next decade. The companies that just eliminate entry-level roles for short-term savings will find themselves in a leadership crisis by 2030. So let me bring this home. Youth unemployment is 2.5 times higher than overall unemployment. 41% of college graduates are underemployed. 1.2 million graduates competing for 17,000 jobs in the UK. This isn't a societal problem. This is your succession planning crisis. Because those entry-level roles you eliminated, they were not just doing tasks. They were building your future leadership team. And if you don't have a strategy for developing leaders when AI handles the work that you used to develop leaders, you are going to wake up in 2030, with an empty pipeline and a boardroom asking you why. Next episode, we are taking this to the board level. I'm calling it the succession crisis no board is discussing. And I'm going to give you the exact frameworks you need to bring this to your board attention before it's too late. Until then, ask yourself this question. When was the last time your board discussed your 2030 leadership team is coming from? If the answer is never, you already have a problem. You just don't see it yet. This is Sahar, your AI whisperer. If you want to email me, ask me a question, email me at sahar@saharconsulting.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Sahar Andrade, on Instagram, Sahar the Reinvent Coach. Before you go, show me some love. Save this episode, share it, subscribe to the podcast. Thank you for making us #1 podcast on few keywords on Apple Podcast and Amazon Music. I love you guys. I hope this gives you some highlights. I can't wait to see you on Friday for our Forbes article-like episode. Again, this is Sahar. Peace out. Till I see you next time.